I never thought a little girl would whisper, "Mommy's gone," until a brave K9 saved us all. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started with laughter and sunlight streaming through the windows, casting joyful shapes on the living room floor. Then, the air turned thick and heavy, shadows creeping in as fear whispered through the corners of our home. I was folding laundry, the soft fabric warm against my fingers, when I heard her voice. Just 4 years old, with big, wide eyes that held the universe in them, she stood there shivering. Her tiny body trembled like a leaf in a gust. "Mommy's gone." Those words hit my chest like a fist. I dropped the laundry, my heart racing, pulse pounding in my ears. Gone? How could she say that? She was so innocent, so precious. I rushed to her, my hand shaking as I knelt down to meet her gaze. My world twisted into a knot. Where was my husband? Then, a cold realization settled in. Had gone to the store, just to grab some snacks for us. But every second felt like an eternity, the clock ticking louder, reminding me of the silence in the house. Strangely, the dog, Max, stood at the door, his ears perked, eyes flickering as if sensing danger. I felt dread crawling up my spine. Something wasn't right. I looked around, the house suddenly unwelcoming. The walls felt like they were closing in. "Honey, where did you see Mommy?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She pointed outside out back where the garden bloomed, bright and alive. I stepped closer to the door, dread clawing at my throat, and the sun cast long shadows across the yard. But it was what I saw next that made my heart stop. In the distance, a figure loomed. It wasn't my husband. My breath caught. Who was that? They stood still, shrouded in an unnatural fog that rolled just above the grass. Everything felt wrong. My hands gripped the door frame as the little girl beside me grabbed my leg, fear radiating from her tiny frame. Max barked suddenly, breaking the silence. He raced outside, a flash of fur and courage. I sensed the urgency, the primal need to protect. My heart thumped louder, fear meshing with a fierce love. As the fog twisted and turned, did I see movement? A glint? My breath hitched. I wanted to scream, to pull my little girl away to safety, but I was frozen. The figure suddenly moved. I staggered back as the fog curled around its feet. My thoughts raced. What if it was someone lost? What if it wasn't? My hands began to tremble violently, and I squeezed my eyes shut, praying this was just a nightmare, a figment of my overactive imagination. But then, like the clash of thunder, Max howled, and something broke free from the undulating mist. The reality of it hit me like a tsunami. A dark shadow lunged toward him, and in that moment, everything hung in the balance: my heart, my little girl's trust, my very breath. I needed to know what I was facing. I needed to know if I would ever feel safe again. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The shadows didn't retreat, and there was no clear escape as I stood paralyzed by the door. My heart raced, an echo of fear that grew with every twist of the mist. Max confronted the dark figure, barking fiercely, his protective instincts screaming louder than mine. "Max, come back!" I cried out, but my voice fell distant, swallowed by the chaos that had enveloped our world. The figure, fluid and chaotic, surged toward Max. My breath caught. What if he was hurt? What if this was not just some ghostly apparition, but a genuine threat looming before us? Panic clawed at me, yet I had to act. I couldn't let my daughter witness this fear. I needed to shield her, to provide some semblance of comfort amidst the unknown. "Stay here," I whispered urgently to the little girl, her small hand still clutching my leg. I stepped forward, a vulnerability pulling at me, and the air tinged with icy despair. I wished for courage, forsaking the safety of stepping back, redefining motherhood in that moment as a leap of faith. As I moved toward the swirling fog, I felt a fierce need to protect not only Max, but also the tender heart beside me. "What do you want?" I shouted into the veil of shadows. The air tasted metallic, filled with ominous energy, yet I stood firm, heart beating with a fierce love that poured from my every nerve. Suddenly, the shadow coalesced, and I was met with a wide, empty gaze that sent shivers down my spine. It advanced toward Max, who stood unwavering, his fur bristling, eyes locked on the figure. But then, just when despair threatened to suffocate the remnants of hope within me, I saw a flicker on the ground, a burst of gold intertwining with the darkness. It was a daffodil, stubborn yet bright, its petals shining defiantly against the oppressive fog. In that fleeting moment, I felt a jolt. Life persisted, even here. "Max, come!" I called, still captivated by the bloom that twinkled against the grim tableau. As if guided by a silent signal, Max broke from his stance and barreled toward me, the shadow faltering in its pursuit. I grabbed my little girl's hand with both relief and fear, pulling her close, shielding her from the sinister presence behind us. The shadows seemed to hiss in disappointment, drawing back like waves retreating from a shore, but I knew this wasn't over. It had only paused, gathering itself like a predator. In the safety of the house, the warmth of the afternoon sun brought tears to my eyes. I sank to the floor, cradling my daughter against my chest, her small frame trembling as she clutched a tattered teddy bear. "Mommy, I was scared." Her voice wobbled, and instinctively, I smoothed her hair, my heart aching. "I know, my love. I'm right here," I whispered, feeling the warmth of her breath against my shoulder. But I needed to know. The fear lingering in my chest morphed into desperation. "What was that?" I dared to ask, pulling back to meet her tear-streaked face. "I saw it in the garden last night," she replied, confusion painting her expression, as if grappling with her own reality. "It was watching us." A shiver ran down my spine, and I held her tighter. The garden, how could something so beautiful be entwined with something so terrifying? "Do you remember anything else?" I probed softly, sensing it was critical to understand not just our fear, but what might have been left unspoken. She nodded slowly, and in that small gesture, I felt a change. It was dark, and it was sad. "Mommy said it was just a shadow. A shadow." It echoed in my mind, resonating with the shadows deep within me. I thought of my husband, and the untold hours he had spent wandering through his own darkness. Had he sensed something? Was this gloom a reflection of his struggle, now materialized before us? As I processed this unsettling revelation, a soft paw pressed against my leg. Max, his eyes still alert, elicited a swirl of comfort amid the tension. "You're safe," I murmured, scratching behind his ears, trying to ground myself in the present. But the overwhelming weight of the unknown loomed like thunder clouds on the horizon, and just when I thought the worst had passed, a sudden knock echoed through the house, cutting through the fragile air surrounding us. My spine stiffened, and a deep sense of dread returned. Who else could it be? The shadows at the door loomed too close for comfort. "Stay here, both of you," I instructed, rising slowly, heart racing once more. I approached the door, fingers trembling as I gripped the handle. What awaited me? Was it safety, or a greater unraveling of our reality? The air was thick with anticipation, a dark corner of my life beckoning to be confronted. I opened the door, not knowing if I would find hope or despair on the other side. The door swung open, creaking like a long-forgotten secret. On the other side stood an unexpected figure draped in shadows, but this time, it was not the kind that sent chills down my spine. Instead, it was a woman, cloaked in an aura of quiet strength. Her dark hair framed her face, which bore an expression of both concern and familiarity. Is this the Lucas residence? She asked, her voice steady yet soft, cutting through the stillness around us. I blinked, processing the surreal shift in our predicament. Yes, but who are you? My heart thundered in my chest, torn between the undeniable instinct to protect my daughter and the flicker of hope ignited by this stranger's presence. My name is Elena. I'm a neighbor, but also a friend, she replied with an earnestness that disarmed me. I sensed something was wrong, and I came to see if you needed help. Her eyes scanned the room, lingering on my daughter, who was still clenching her teddy bear tightly, peeking out from behind my leg. Help? I managed, incredulity mingling with a hint of relief. I would grasp at any lifeline in this storm. There was something outside. A shadow. The words tumbled out before I could gather my thoughts. Elena's presence could either bring solace or add another layer of confusion. She nodded, her gaze steady. I know about the shadows. They don't only haunt gardens. They also linger within families. I've seen them before. A chill danced along my spine at her revelation. Max, sensing my unease, moved closer, growling softly, his protective instincts unwavering. Are you saying you know what these shadows are? I pressed, a spark of desperation igniting within me, driven by the desire to conquer the fear that had taken root in my heart. Not entirely, she admitted, a shadow flickering in her own eyes. But I believe they are drawn to pain, to unresolved sorrow. You've lost someone dear, haven't you? The weight of her words pressed against my chest like a boulder. I blinked rapidly, struggling to keep the flood of emotions at bay. My husband, he disappeared some time ago. Pain gushed from the depths of my heart, raw and unhealed. I thought I was managing, but these shadows are manifestations of your grief, she interrupted softly, her voice like a balm to my aching soul. They feed off fear, sorrow, and confusion. You have to confront them before they consume you. Confront them? My breath hitched as I glanced back at my daughter, still nestled beside me, wide-eyed and silent. What did that mean for her? Yes, but it requires courage. Your family can heal, she assured, her expression growing earnest. I can help. Before I could respond, a squeal of laughter emitted from my little girl, cutting through the dark atmosphere. She darted past me, her teddy bear forgotten as she embraced Elena with an innocent exuberance. You're not scary. You're a friend, she chirped, her joy lighting a miniature sun in our dimmed world. I watched, astonished, as Elena dropped to one knee and enveloped her in an embrace. The image was surreal, a warm exchange between a stranger and my child, glowing against the backdrop of everything else that felt so wrong. Little one, it takes bravery to face the unknown, Elena whispered, a glimmer of protection in her gaze. In that moment, through the layers of fear and uncertainty, I wondered if this woman might just be our beacon of light. But even as I savored this flicker of hope, the shadows refused to dissipate. They were still there, lurking at the periphery of my mind, whispering of the darkness that had torn my family apart. Suddenly, a deep growl rumbled from Max, drawing my attention back to the window. My stomach twisted as I caught movement among the trees, more shadows, undulating and whispering as they twisted together into a chaotic form. No! Not without warning! I gasped, my heart racing anew as dread washed over me. I turned to Elena, panic rising like a tide. They're back! We can't let them near her! I cried, fear morphing into instinct as I instinctively pulled my daughter closer. Stay near me, Elena commanded, her own eyes wide but resolute. This is what they want. To keep you afraid. Use that fear. Let it fuel your strength. Strength? I shook my head in disbelief. How can I be strong when all I feel is brokenness? But she reached for my hand, her grip steadying me. You can find strength in each other. In love. You've faced this before, haven't you? I've lost everything, I shouted, my voice echoing within the confines of our home, spiraling out into the universe beyond. Elena knelt down again, bringing her face level with my daughter. And what about hope? She urged gently. Hope is what drives us to fight back against shadows. Your mommy has that hope inside her. The panic swelled in my heart, swallowing the light that Elena had tried to ignite. Hope seemed so elusive, especially now, with an unseen threat clawing at the edges of my reality. But in that moment, as I glanced at my daughter's innocent face, I felt the flicker of courage reignite a deep longing to protect her essence from the approaching shadows. As the shadows crept closer, swirling with malevolence, I took a deep breath, forcing my tremors to subside. I could do this. I needed to confront my fears for her sake. Together, I whispered, my resolve strengthening, we will face whatever comes. Just as I felt that surge of courage solidify into purpose, a thunderous crack echoed outside, followed by an alarming silence that sent a shiver down my spine. Mommy? My daughter's voice trembled, faint against the magnitude of the unknown. Then, without warning, an anguished scream pierced through the air, echoing from beyond. The sound set off a devastating alarm within our hearts, reminding us all of the darkness that had followed us. What had just happened? Our fragile hope dimmed as a new threat loomed. Was it an embodiment of the shadows, or a herald of something far worse? I stood frozen, dread settling coldly into the marrow of my bones, knowing in that moment that the confrontation of our past wasn't just imminent, it was upon us. The scream faded into a haunting silence, leaving an echoing void where my daughter's laughter had once filled the room. My breath quickened, panic clawing at the edges of my composure as I gripped Sophia's hand tighter. Stay close, I whispered, glancing out the window where the shadows seemed to pulse with an eagerness that made my skin crawl. Elena remained calm, but her expression had shifted, as if she sensed that something monumental had just transpired. We need to be brave now, she said, scanning the room with urgency. These shadows thrive in fear. Bravery? I scoffed, my heart racing. Am terrified. How can I show any bravery when I can't even shield my daughter from whatever just happened outside? Elena placed a hand on my shoulder, squeezing gently. Fear is a part of it, but it doesn't have to own you. Stand with me, and we'll shine a light on the darkness together. Every instinct in me screamed to retreat, to huddle in the corner of our small living room, but I couldn't. Not while Sophia was by my side. What do we do? I asked, my voice a ragged whisper. We confront it together, she replied, her tone firm. But we have to brace ourselves for what we might find. Sometimes, the shadows mask the truth. Just as the words left her lips, a deafening crash erupted from the direction of the front door, splintering the remnants of my heart that dared to hope for safety. Max growled ferociously, teeth bared, as we turned to face the sound. Another suffocating silence settled in as we waited, hearts pounding, each tick of the clock stretching into an eternity. Then, from the darkness outside, something shifty a figure emerged, stumbling through the fading dusk. My heart raced at the sight. Could it be? Could it really be him? Daddy? Sophia squeaked, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear, pulling away from my grip to edge closer to the door. Stay back. I called out instinctively, but my command wavered with disbelief. Surely this was a cruel trick, conjured by the shadows that had wrapped us in their cold embrace. The figure staggered further into the light, an inky silhouette against the dim glow of the street lamp. Please help me, he rasped, collapsing onto the porch, his voice hoarse and broken. Dad? Sophia whispered, eyes wide with fear and longing. I swallowed hard, torn between that spark of hope and the dread curling tighter around my heart. Stay where you are. I shouted, my protective instincts surging as my mind raced, parsing together fragments of the last few years. Elena, is this real? I asked breathlessly, overwhelmed by the sight in front of me, a chilling recognition tugging at my consciousness. This can't be, it's not possible. Elena stepped towards the door, her eyes narrowing. It's a risk, but we need to know the truth. We can't let fear dictate our actions. My thoughts splintered. What if it's a trap? It was an instinctive worry, bred from loss and grief, but the gentle grip of my daughter's hand felt warm against the backdrop of my anxiety. I glanced down at her, innocence shimmering in her hopeful gaze, every ounce of me wanting to protect that light. And yet, there he was, a man who had vanished without a trace, who had left us with nothing but his absence, now reclaiming a space in our lives that had felt so irrevocably lost. Sophia took a trembling step forward, spurred on by an echo of affection and desperate trust. "Daddy!" she cried out again, her voice breaking in the breathless silence that had enveloped our world. "Please," he rasped again, his voice shaky under the weight of his desperation. "I need to explain everything. It's not what you think." Night encased us, and as I wrestled with the emotions crashing within, uncertainty shadowed my heart. Should I allow this glimpse of hope to bloom, or were these shadows merely serving up a fresh layer of betrayal? "We have to be cautious," I warned, feeling the tug of memory mix with fresh emotions, a potent mix that left me reeling. Elena moved to stand beside me, her presence offering a sense of steadiness I desperately needed. "Trust yourself," she said softly, though her unwavering gaze stayed focused on the man at our door. "But trust your daughter too. She's calling him, and that bond is powerful." Sophia stepped forward again, her tiny frame bold against the shadows that encroached. "I missed you, Daddy. Please don't be scared of the shadows. They can't hurt us if we're together." Tears brimmed in my eyes as I watched that flicker of innocence rise within my girl. Her faith stood in stark contrast to the chaos swirling around us, a light in this storm. "Please," I pleaded once more, the word laced with my own confusion. "What happened? What took you away from us?" He lifted his head, eyes catching the dim light. "I can't explain it right now," he said, voice cracking with desperation. "But I wasn't alone. Not at first. I was taken." The world trembled as those words hung between us, heavy with implications far beyond what I could comprehend. Sophia shivered, looking up at me, her innocent expression merging into uncertainty. "Mommy? What does he mean?" At that moment, the ground beneath us felt unstable, and I gripped my daughter tighter, fighting the wave of overwhelming emotion that threatened to drown me. How could I shield her from the complexities I had unknowingly allowed back into our lives? Then, from the shadows coalescing at the edges, a figure emerged, a canine silhouette, large and resolute, piercing the darkness, with a steady gaze that seemed almost protective. Max raised his hackles, positioning himself between us and the dog, as if sensing that new entity's arrival was just as significant as the man before us. A wave of uncertainty washed over me. Would this be the ally we needed, or yet another harbinger of the darkness that sought to rip apart the fragile moments we had managed to build? Before I could piece my thoughts together, the reality of our world shattered again, and a sudden dread crept over me, a premonition that perhaps this moment wouldn't end with the reunion we so desperately sought. In one swift motion, the shadows seemed to pulse, swelling with malicious intent, swirling closer, wrapping around us like tendrils of darkness. "We're not safe!" I screamed, my heart racing anew. "Mommy!" Sophia cried, retreating back towards me, her safety net stripped bare. As my vision dimmed with fear, I prepared to fight back against whatever forces were converging upon us, the weight of our encounters now amplifying my resolve. But with the past breathing down our necks and remnants of the shadows surrounding us, I feared we might never truly escape. What did it truly mean to confront the shadows? I realized, and was the man at our door the beginning of our reckoning, or a deeper plunge into the unknown? The shadows stirred, their whispers wrapping around us, hungry for the fear we couldn't quite quell. I barely registered the day's fading light as it slipped into an impenetrable night, darkness pooling at our feet. I held Sophia close, feeling her small heart thumping erratically against my own. "Hold on to me," I murmured, squeezing her tighter, wishing I could shield her from whatever horror awaited us in the looming darkness. I felt the flicker of hope battling against the dread in my chest as my gaze darted from the man who was once my husband to the fierce K9 standing guard. "Get away from him," I commanded, my voice barely a whisper as Max growled, his stance unwavering. The faithful dog was a formidable barrier between us and the unknown, and I silently prayed he could sense the danger lurking just beyond our threshold. "Please," the man pleaded again, his voice breaking like glass. "You have to trust me. You can't understand what it's been like, what I've seen." Yet those words sounded insufficient against the torrent of pain and loss that had marked our lives since his departure. "He is not the answer," Elena declared, stepping closer to me, her expression fierce. "We have to rely on each other, on the bond we've forged since he left." "Bond?" I echoed, my heart clenching. "What bond do we have? You were gone. How can I trust you now? You can't just waltz back into our lives after leaving us in despair." My voice rose with indignation, shaken by the realization of how fragile my hopes had become. Sophia, less encumbered by the swirling chaos of adult emotions, took a hesitant step towards her father. "But Daddy," she started, her innocence radiating through the storm, "you're back. You can play with me again." Her voice quivered, and for a moment, I thought I saw her bravery shining stronger than fear. But as she stepped forward, a guttural growl from Max shredded the silence around us. The shadows danced closer, relentless and alive, and my heart sank deeper, caught in a whirlwind of dread. I felt the cold grip of the past tighten around my throat, choking away my ability to think clearly. "Stay close, Sophia," I shouted, but she was lost in her own world, cast in awe before the man who was supposed to be her protector. "Listen to Mommy, sweetheart," he urged, desperation coating his words. "I want to explain everything. It's not safe to be out here in the open." The shadows coiled like serpents at the periphery, and I cursed the jagged edges of betrayal that cut into my heart. How could I reconcile the man I loved with the one who had abandoned us? Rage bubbled just beneath the surface, a fire fueled by grief. "Elena, what do we do?" I felt helpless, torn between the two worlds colliding at our doorstep, the man I'd lost and the daughter still clinging to a fading dream of reunion. "We hold onto each other into our own light," she said, a serenity lacing her words. "We need to stand strong." A flicker of movement drew my attention from the direction of the porch. Something slipped through the shadows, a movement barely perceptible yet potent enough to send chills racing through my spine. My eyes widened as the figure neared, bristling with an unseen power. I felt a surge of unease, as if the air had thickened with malevolence. Could it be? A stark realization hit me, every nerve in my body aligning in dread. My husband hadn't returned alone. "No!" I gasped, barely able to process the implications. "You brought them back with you." "There wasn't a choice." His voice trembled in the thickening darkness. "You must believe me. I didn't ask for this. I fought to come back to you. They followed." I blinked rapidly, against the tide of stubborn hope that flickered in my heart. The truth felt wrenched from my mouth, desperate to escape. "You didn't fight hard enough. Why should I believe you?" At that moment, the new figure lunged forward, wild eyes glinting in the dark as the echoes of soft laughter began to whirl around us like an impending storm. The void was transforming into a cacophony of murmurs, each one carrying promises and threats intertwined, dragging with them the weight of memories lost and futures stolen. "The shadows, they are alive." Elena breathed next to me, her tone a mix of urgency and dread. "This isn't merely your past. It's our future colliding with it, and it's hungry." With that, The shadows surged forward, an abyssal tide that seemed to possess a will of its own. I felt its power wrap around my limbs, pulling me down. Panic clawed at me, but buried deep within, a glimmer of defiance ignited. "Stay together!" I screamed, fighting against the encroaching darkness, my resolve flaring hot against their chilling grasp. In that moment, a surge of clarity flashed in my need to protect my daughter, and all that was left of our fragile world. I was her shield, and I would not let the shadows reclaim us. Just as I stood to brace myself against the malevolence approaching, a deafening crack pierced the air. Lights flickered momentarily, illuminating fleeting shadows. Through the fleeting radiance, I saw them clearly, faces twisted in agony, remnants of what was once whole, lost to the void. "Mom!" Sophia screamed, the warmth of her tiny body colliding against mine as she pressed close, searching for safety in my embrace. A tendril of fear curled around my heart, binding tight as I was confronted with the terrifying implications of this new reality. The shadows surged around us, becoming a choir of whispers that summoned our worst fears, echoing unanswered questions and haunting memories. "No more!" I cried defiantly, feeling the weight of my daughter pressed against me, her faith burning bright against the encroaching darkness. But as the shadows pulsed and darker drained the light from the air, I knew we were caught in something bigger than ourselves, and the reckoning was only just beginning. The air thickened with the ghosts of our past, as the cacophony of whispers rose into a frenzied symphony. Each shadow drew closer, their malevolent intent like tendrils stretching towards us, hungry for the warmth of life we fought to hold on to. I felt Sophia's tiny body shuddering against mine, her small frame trembling with the weight of fear that enveloped her. "Don't listen to them, Sophia," I whispered, my voice trembling as I clung tighter, trying to shield her from the nightmarish visions the shadows painted. I could feel her heart racing, mirroring my own panic, and I wished with every fiber of my being that I could take her pain away. "Mommy, what do they want?" she asked, her voice barely above a tremor, innocence tinged with dread. "What they want is to take away the light," Elena said, her eyes scanning the chaos. "We need to make a stand." But how could we, when our strength was so deeply intertwined with the very man who had once walked away? I shot a glance at him, the man I had loved, and now a stranger wrapped in darkness. He looked desperate, the flicker of old bravery lingering in his eyes, mixed with something deeper, a sorrow that felt too familiar. "Please, I can help," he cried, his voice raw, as if each word tore from him. "I know how to fight them. You don't understand. They're feeding on our fears." A surge of hopelessness gripped at my core. "You've only brought more fear into our lives," I retorted, emotions churned and raw. "You left me to fend for our daughter while you chased shadows." But, as if in response to our pain, a chilling laughter erupted from beyond the veil of darkness, echoing through the night like a haunting melody. The shadows stretched, contorting into forms both familiar and grotesque. I saw flickers of faces, friends we'd lost, their eyes hollowed, mouths twisted into mocking grins. Each visage tugged at my heart, bringing memories flooding back, sorrow mingling with rage. Then, unexpectedly, a ray of light pierced through the murky veil. Max stood tall, his fur bristling, the fierce protector at our side. He barked, filling the night with a sound rooted in determination and love. "Stay by him, Max," I shouted, needing him now more than ever. The shadows flinched, recoiling momentarily at the vibrations of his loyalty. A collective gasp shattered the tension, as if the darkness itself could sense the power in our bond, the sheer will to stand against despair. "Together," I murmured, feeling the warmth of my daughter pressed against me, fueling my resolve. "We will face this together." We braced ourselves, encircled by shadows that writhed and whispered. The man took a tentative step closer, his intention narrowing as his gaze fixed on me. "I swear I will make it right. I'll protect you both." I didn't have a choice before, but now? I interrupted harshly, the bitterness spilling over like lava from a dormant volcano. You have no idea what we've gone through, what she's sacrificed. You can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to change. The shadows pulsed around us, as if feeding on the turmoil between us. I could feel their icy fingers clawing at my resolve. Sophia, close your eyes, I urged, fighting to clear my mind of bitterness, focusing instead on the warmth of my child beside me. But she looked up, her big eyes holding both fear and hope. Mommy, I want him to stay. I want my daddy. Her voice broke me, the innocence like a dagger twisting in my chest. My heart splintered, emotions clashing violently within me. How could I deny her such a basic wish? The desire for family, for a safe harbor amidst this storm, nearly overwhelmed me. Suddenly, a shadow, darker and larger than the rest, broke through the circle, its gaze fixed on Sophia. You're afraid to trust, aren't you? It hissed, its voice cloaked in malice. You've lost your faith in love, in light. Give in to the darkness. It's easier. No. I shouted, the word bursting from me in defiance. As if responding to my rebellion, the shadow lunged, desperate to seize the moment. But in that heartbeat, Max surged forward, a blur of fur and tenacity. He met the shadow head-on, teeth baring as he snapped at the darkness, giving us the vital seconds we needed. The sound of his bark shattered the equilibrium of despair, and for an instant, I felt the flicker of hope stirring within me once more. Sophia squeezed my hand tightly. Mommy, please! Don't let it take him away. I turned, pushing back against the wards of despair creeping into my heart. I want, sweetheart. I promise. But the stakes felt impossibly high, the weight of impending doom drawing closer. Max continued to fight. More than a doe, was an embodiment of our collective spirit. The darkness hesitated, recoiling slightly from his undying loyalty. I seized the moment to whisper to Elena, can we bind our strength? We have to shield them. Our love is stronger than this. Yes, she said firmly, her eyes burning with fierce resolve. We moved closer, forming a protective barrier, hands clasped together, drawing strength from each other. But as we prepared to fight back against the darkness, shadows surged once again. The cacophony crescendoed anew, and just as it seemed like we might grasp hold of hope, a new figure emerged amid the chaos. I gasped, recognizing the familiar face that haunted my dreams. Not at you. I breathed, horror taking hold. There stood Sarah, my sister, the one I had thought lost to the void. Her eyes glinted with a mixture of sorrow and something darker. I'm here to help, she said, but her tone was laced with something hollow, something twisted. As the shadows surged around us, the tautness in the air spoke of mounting dread. The very fabric of our world felt ready to unravel. Just as hope flickered, a chilling realization dawned. I didn't know who to trust anymore, and the line between savior and foe might blur beyond recognition. The shadows pulsed like a living creature, closing in, tightening their grip on our frail sanctuary. I felt the warmth of Sophia's small hand entwined with mine, a fragile tether anchoring me to hope. As the furious noise swelled, I could see Max still darting through the darkness, his bravery punctuating the cacophony with barks of tenacity. But now, another layer of fear unfurled within minute just for our immediate danger. But as I stood there, the realization of Sarah's presence struck me with a force I hadn't anticipated. Sarah? The name was hardly a whisper, yet it reverberated through the chaos like a bell tolling. How is this possible? The incredulity in my voice barely masked the dread clawing at my insides. I found a way back, she said, her beautiful features marred by shadows that flickered at the edges of her form. You don't understand what I've seen, what I've become. The shadows flickered and recoiled, circling around her uncertainly, as if they too were wary of her intentions. My heart raced as I alternated between wanting to run to her and the fear that she might bring greater danger. Her laughter, once familiar and warm, twisted into something chilling. I'm here to help, but we must stop clinging to the light that's been snuffed out. It will only lead to more pain. What are you talking about? I demanded, my voice rising. I couldn't fathom how she could speak of surrendering the very essence of hope. We have to fight for it. Fighting only deepens the shadows, she countered softly, and the eerie calmness of her tone sent a shiver down my spine. You have no idea how to harness this power. Will never win unless you understand what it truly means to let go. Sophia squeezed my hand harder, her nails digging into my palm, as if sensing the tension shifting between us. Mommy, do you think she's really here? Like Daddy? She asked, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and trepidation. Rejecting the instinct to betray my sister, to dismiss her words as lies, created a painful rift in my heart. No, I refused, but the word felt hollow. You can't trust the shadows, Sarah. They've taken so much from us already. But Sarah's presence drew out the curiosity and vulnerability in Sophia. What did you see, Aunt Sarah? She asked, eyes wide, her innocence acting as olive branches in a tense standoff. I glimpsed the flicker of something momentarily lost, a glint of tenderness in Sarah's tired expression. Sophia, there's a world beyond this, a place where love and pain intertwine, where darkness is part of the light, she said slowly, each word weighted with conflict. But you have to embrace the darker parts too. It's the only way to heal. Stop! I shouted, feeling as if I were being torn in two. The shadows are lying. They want to take what little light we have left. Yet, as the shadows shifted, I sensed unease creeping into the darkness at the edges of our gathering, a momentary uncertainty in their malevolent whispering. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was a vulnerability there to exploit. But while I dared not trust Sarah completely, I felt anguish radiating from her, a tale waiting to be shared. The shadows wavered at her feet, drawn to her troubled essence, but she stood still, drenched in a sorrow that threatened to consume her. You don't understand. I chose to follow the darkness to save our family. You're clinging to a mirage of safety, she stated, her voice softening. Mommy's gone, isn't she? You just don't want to see it.no. Sophia exclaimed, tears pooling in her eyes. Mommy's not gone. Not while we have each other. The weight of those words crashed down upon me. My heart fractured, longing to protect my daughter from this spiral of sorrow attempting to coil around her tiny frame. Sophia, listen to me, I murmured, crouching to her level. We can still find a way to fight. We can still bring her back. Fight? Sarah interjected, her laughter taking on a twisted tinge. Fighting only brings more shadows. Let the darkness embrace you. Allow it to teach you. Trust that it knows how to mend broken things. A dark figure in the periphery seemed to nod with sinister agreement, its eyes glowing with the hunger that lurked within shadows. I felt the very air grow heavy, thick with despair and uncertainty, as their whispers morphed and entwined around our hearts. My sister's gaze held a mix of conviction and sorrow, the shadows passing through her without resistance. But the moment was shattered as Max lunged forward, a fierce protector even amidst the confusion. He barked with the same urgency he had shown when the darkness first crept into our lives. Suddenly, a glimmer of understanding pierced the turmoil. I didn't have to choose between love and light or darkness. Maybe there was a way to weave them together, but at what cost? Max! I shouted, and in that instant, hope sparked anew, a plan ignited in the labyrinth of my mind. We can forge a new path. Together, somehow, we can blend light and dark to shield ourselves. Sophia's eyes brightened, a fresh flame emerging amid the shadows that sought to extinguish her spirit. Yet just as hope began to flourish within our hearts, Sarah's expression shifted subtly, darkness creeping across her delicate features. You think you can defy it? You'll only make it angrier, she warned, her voice now tinged with a reverberating aura of despair. In a moment, shadows surged forward like looming waves, crashing down with a terrifying force. And then, from behind Sarah, another figure emerged, striking, with cold yet familiar eyes that stopped my heart. "Sarah, I'm sorry," came a voice I had thought lost forever. "But we must choose a side before it's too late." Standing there, a man cloaked in shadows and memories, was someone I never expected to see again. The corner of his mouth twitched into a sly smile, a dagger poised to plunge deeper into the crevices of our fractured family. And in that moment, I felt everything I had fought for slip through my fingers, the ground beneath us trembling as darkness began to consume light, pulling us all into an abyss of uncertainty, despair, and the harsh reality of choices long hidden in our haunted past. The shadows loomed larger than ever, twisting like serpents eager to entwine their prey. Relief from the visage of the man I had thought lost turned to horror as confusion and dread churned within me. "What are you doing here?" I spat, instinctively shielding Sophia with my body. He stepped forward, each movement deliberate and tinged with the confidence of someone who knew the depths of darkness intimately. "You're not ready to hear the truth, but you must. The lines between light and dark are thinner than you think," he said, his voice smooth yet laced with a haunting undertone that stirred both recognition and resentment. "Get away from us!" I screamed, pushing Sophia further behind me. She pressed into me, her small frame trembling against my back. Max growled low, a knotted ball of determination ready to leap into action, and yet a profound sense of uncertainty tugged at my own instincts. I wanted to fight, but I feared what this man could unleash with just a word. "Tell me the truth then, if that's what you're here for," Sarah said, shifting her gaze from me to him, her brow furrowed with some conflicting emotion I could not decipher. "Do you know something I don't?" The man's crooked smile widened, and he lifted his hands almost in mock surrender. "The truth is painful, Sarah. It was never my intention to hurt you," he said, his voice becoming a gentle caress, a deceptive lullaby amidst the storm. "But pain is the only catalyst for change. Stop!" I pleaded, shaking with the weight of emotions far too heavy to bear. I felt the earth beneath me quaking, the shadows lingering closer, sensing fear and desperation as their prey. Stop feeding her lies. But Sarah's attention was on him now, utterly entranced. "What do you mean?" "What change?" "The change that must come to free us all from these binds," he replied, taking a step closer. In that moment, he extended a hand, fingers outstretched like an invitation laced in shadows. "To save everything, you must first lose something precious. Don't!" I shouted, fear gripping me tighter than the shadows ever could. "Hell only drag you into the darkness. It's a trap. Can't you see that?" Sophia whimpered softly, her small hand clutching my leg. "Mommy, I'm scared," she whispered, her voice a fragile echo in the turmoil enveloping us. And then, it happened in a blink of clarity amidst the chaos. The shadows, always hungry, shifted as if responding to my desperation. "Sophia, remember the stories I told you about hope?" I whispered urgently, trying to redirect her fear. "Hope is the light we hold on to in darkness. Never let it go, Mommy," she replied, her innocent faith igniting a small spark of strength within me. What if we helped Aunt Sarah instead?" The words hung in the thick air between us, a suggestion that held both promise and peril. I looked up at Sarah. Her internal struggle was laid bare before me. Shadows wove through her gauzy form, urging her toward a choice of allegiance. "He wants to use you," I exclaimed, my heart racing as adrenaline surged through my veins. "If you let him, he'll take you away from us for good. Maybe that's what needs to happen." Her voice, though soft, resonated with the weight of finality. She stepped toward him, drawn to the man cloaked in darkness, as though he were an allure she couldn't resist. "I want to understand. I need to know how to heal, how to save our family. No!" I screamed, panic surging as time slowed. The shadowy figure beside her inched forward, eyes glistening with a predatory gleam. "Sarah, please!" "You don't have to do this." But just as I sensed the precipice of despair close in on us, Max, spurred by some primal instinct, broke free, racing ahead. He flung himself at the dark man, teeth bared and growling ferociously. The sudden action startled everyone, surprising the shadows that stirred restlessly, glancing between Max and their master. "Foolish beast," the man muttered, flicking a wrist, and the shadows recoiled in response. "You think you can fight the inevitable?" In that fleeting moment of chaos, I caught a glimpse of fear crossing Sarah's features, as if she were awakening from a trance, her ability to discern clarity wavering. Suddenly, a sharp howl erupted from Max, reverberating through the darkness, a cry of resilience and undying loyalty. It was a sound that reminded me of all we were fighting for. "Sophia?" I cried, grabbing her hand tightly. "We need to hold on to each other." Just then, the shadows surged forward, drawn by the intensity of our emotions, a chaotic tide ready to sweep us away. But within the shadows, I caught a fleeting glimpse, something genuine reflecting back at me, as if the dark world was not just filled with despair but echoes of hope. And in that moment, as the shadows swept closer, I realized a truth I hadn't deemed possible. The darkness could be a part of our story, and perhaps even the kiss of shadows might teach us resilience. But at what price? As the swirling mass enveloped us, Sarah's hand found my own, the warmth battling back the cold, encroaching despair. In our grasp, I felt the flicker of something indescribable begin to grow, hope born of defiance. But with the shadows lurking ever closer, it remained to be seen if it would be enough. "Mommy, what do we do now?" Sophia's voice broke through the panic, and her innocence cut through me like a fresh wound. "Together," I replied, not knowing how or if we could truly stand against the tide. But before I could form a coherent thought, the floor beneath us shook violently, and with a bone-chilling crack, the world around us shifted, and the shadows retaliated. I felt myself being pulled into the void, the swirling chaos swallowing everything. And just as the darkness began to consume us entirely, a single thought pierced through the tumult. What if the choice we made mattered more than any of us could comprehend? In that one breathless moment, I caught a glimpse of the man's satisfied smile, and I knew there would be no turning back now. The world spun wildly, and fear clawed at my insides as the shadows roared hungrily, eager to claim us as their own. Sophia's small hand in mine felt like my lifeline, and despite the chaos, I could feel her determination pushing against the tide of despair. "Hold on. Don't let go," I shouted, bracing myself against the overwhelming force that sought to drag us into the abyss. Yet, as I clutched Sophia tightly, my gaze drifted back to Sarah, caught in an internal storm that mirrored the tumult around us. "Sarah!" I yelled, my voice rising above the cacophony. "You don't have to go. We're still here. We count on you. Focus on us." The man beside her, this embodiment of darkness, watched with a strange blend of amusement and anticipation. "What is hope worth when faced with undeniable truth?" he taunted, his voice echoing like a sinister whisper in the void. Just when it seemed all was lost, Max barreled through the fray, thrusting himself between us and the figure cloaked in darkness. His low growl reverberated through the air like thunder, both fierce and protective. I had always known Max was brave, but in that moment, he embodied something far greater, was a beacon of loyalty, pushing back against the consuming shadows. With a primal roar, he lunged, snapping at the figure's outstretched hand, but the man merely laughed, the sound rich with malice. "You think a beast can quench the darkness? Your love is a drop in the ocean of despair," he sneered, flicking his wrist again. In response, shadows lashed out, swirling around Max, but he stood undeterred, the pride of a guardian dog burning fiercely in his chest. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Why won't he go away?" Sophia cried, her voice trembling, yet laced with an innocence that threatened to crack my resolve. "Keep faith, love. We're stronger together," I urged, glancing frantically between her and Max, desperate to ignite courage within them both. But as the shadows twisted and whirled around us, I felt an unexpected warmth wash over me. A small glimmer ignited in Sophia's eyes. Even amidst the dark, her heart beat with resilience, and I realized the true children held a unique power, an innate brightness that could even shine in the darkest of times. "Mommy, let's tell a story," she proposed, her voice rising above the chaos, firm and resolute. "A story?" I questioned, my brow furrowing as pieces of my heart began to flutter to life at the prospect. "Yes. The one about the brave princess and her magical dog," she said, her tiny voice brimming with conviction. "Then maybe the scary shadows will listen." As small as it seemed, Sophia's suggestion ignited something in me. The shadows may have threatened to envelop us, but within my daughter's innocence lay an irrefutable truth. Stories hold power. The fabric of hope weaved tightly, threading through darkness like light piercing through dense fog. "Okay, sweetheart," I said gently, squeezing her hand tightly. In the land far, far away, a princess set out on a quest with her fierce canine companion. They faced darkness together, and no shadow was strong enough to pull them apart. With each word I spoke, I felt the currents of the shadows hesitate. They pulsed and twisted, their hold on us quaking, ever so slightly, under the weight of our shared hope. The man observed us, his eyes narrowing, irritation etching deeper into his features. "This is futile," he barked, nearly drowning out my voice. "You think this child's whim can defy fate? Accept the truth of your circumstances. It is time to relinquish hope and embrace what it means to be lost, N.O." I yelled back, every ounce of my being igniting with strength. "It's exactly your words that will lead to our freedom. Sophia, tell me what happens next." With each syllable Sophia uttered, painting the scenes of her imagination, the shadows flickered as though drawn into her voice, caught in her spell of innocence. The tales of courage and relentless friendship wove a tapestry that clung to us, offering unexpected sanctuary in the face of encroaching darkness. The whispers of the shadows grew louder, struggling to drown out her words, and yet they began to falter as Sophia's smile widened with the telling of her story. I dared to hope, my heart racing as I fed off her enthusiasm, weaving details into her narrative, inviting Sarah to join in, urging her to see the light that glowed so brilliantly within our little girl. Just when our moment of defiance seemed to take root, the ground trembled again, more violently this time. The air crackled with chaotic energy, the shadows convulsing as if threatened by our light. And then, in a heartbeat that felt like an eternity, a rift opened in the very fabric of space around us. The swirling shadows ignited into brilliant bursts of dark energy, and I saw a shimmering light rising from within the essence of our stories, the weight of our love, an unbreakable bond against the suffocating gloom. Yet, before I could grasp the enormity of what unfolded, I felt a shocking pull at my core. The man, weaving his will through the growing chaos, took bold strides towards Sarah, who remained transfixed by the glimmering darkness that beckoned her away. "Join me, and you shall gain knowledge beyond your wildest dreams." He reached for her, fingers outstretched toward the fading light, and my heart plummeted as I saw her resolve flicker. "Sarah!" "No!" I shouted, the name barely escaping my lips, my fear crashing like waves against the tide of vulnerability. But before I could stem the tide, the world around us shattered, and I was left grappling with one crushing realization. At what point would our choices lead to devastation, and whom would we lose in the process? As the ripples of darkness surged around us, the last words of our story hung in the air, almost tangible. Would this brave little girl's tale become our salvation, or sacrifice? In that breathless instant, with one final echoing glance at Sarah, I felt both hope and dread intertwine, and the abyss yawned wide beneath us, holding its breath for what came next. It felt like an eternity of spiraling through shadows and light, an exquisite torment of emotions clashing within me. As the chaos enveloped us, all I could grasp was the warmth of my daughter's hand in mine, a tether of love anchoring me amidst the tumult. "Mommy!" Sophia cried, her voice laced with desperation and innocence. I pulled her closer, feeling the pounding of her heart echoing my own. "We have to keep telling the story," she urged, her spirit burning bright like a beacon amidst the suffocating darkness. "Every princess has her moment of courage," I began, each word igniting a flicker of hope within me. "They battle shadows together, relying on their love to guide them through the fiercest storms. I will detail a bravery into our reality, sensing the ebbing tension of the shadows swirling around us, momentarily stunned by the power of our bond." Sophia attempted to paint a picture of the princess' adventure, the struggles, the friends they made along the way, and every fierce battle they fought against the creeping darkness. With every syllable uttered, hope bloomed again, as the shadows flickered uncertainly, drawn into the light of her spirit, a flickering flame daring to burn brightly in the clutches of despair. But just as our voices wove a tapestry of connection, the man cloaked in shadow snarled, rage twisting his features into something both familiar and terrifying. "Children's stories won't save you," he seethed, the darkness eagerly curling around him, as if to echo his sentiments. "Hope is a mere distraction, a splintered reflection of reality." In that horrifying moment, I glanced sideways at Sarah, awash in the swirling shadows of uncertainty. I could see remnants of her glimmer of the sister I had known fighting to return from the depths of despair. "Sarah!" I cried, desperate and pleading. "You don't have to follow him. We can fight this together. I believe in us." The words tumbled out, each one fueled by years of love mingled with grief. But even as I held onto her gaze, the shadows swelled, lashing out, threatening to envelop me in their chilling embrace. "You cannot change what is already in motion," the man uttered with sinister resolve, stepping closer to Sarah, attempting to loop his darkness around her essence. "No!" I shouted, instinctively pushing forward, trying to draw Sarah back with every ounce of conviction I had left. "Don't let him pull you into the void. Fight with us. We need you." Max positioned himself mightily between us, growling fiercely, a guardian refusing to let any harm come near. "Mommy, I'm scared." Sophia trembled, pressing closer to me, her tiny body quaking against the shadows threatening to engulf us. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in our bond. "Sophia, listen closely," I whispered, determination hardening in my voice. "You are strong and brave. You can bring light to the darkness. Don't let them convince you otherwise." I turned to Sarah, pleading with my eyes to see the truth. "We fight for love, not out of fear of losing it. We can reclaim our story." For the briefest moment, I saw something shift in Sarah's eyes, a flicker of recognition that perhaps there was still a connection between us. Perhaps the shadows were not so insurmountable after all. "Remember our childhood tales?" I whispered, urgency flooding my voice. "We fought against the darkness as a family. We relied on each other and the love we shared." As if the memories created a bridge across the tumult, I could see Sarah hesitate, the door to her heart opening, but the darkness writhed, sensing the shift and growing frantic. "You can't stop this," the man howled, shadows clawing at his aura, desperate to reclaim their hold. "Join me, Sarah." The words dripped with honeyed lies, yet I could see the gleam of reality offered within. But every moment was a battleground. Would she succumb to the shadows he offered, or could love be the compass guiding her back to us? "Mommy!" Sophia shouted, fierce conviction rising in her small voice. "Fight with me." "Yes," I echoed, a fresh swell of courage bolstering my spirit. "Stay by me, and we will make our voices loud enough to drown out the darkness. Stories are stronger than shadows." And with that, we intertwined our hearts in a tapestry of light, each of us standing strong in our conviction. I felt the force of our love pushing against the shadow's grasp, a gentle warmth woven from memories, laughter, and the promise of unyielding love. "Have you forgotten?" I entreated, my eyes locked on Sarah's, pouring every ounce of my soul into my voice. You are not alone, never were you. We face peril together, and our love is far more potent than their shadows. But the shadows around us surged, undulating with bitterness, and shadows stretched toward Sarah, seeking to disrupt. I felt uncertainty creep back in, the grip of despair molding my reality. Their darkness thrives on fear, I urged, connection and unity flooding our makeshift circle. Remember, we were never stronger than when we stood together. Max barked defiantly, almost a rallying cry. He sprinted towards the approaching shadows, refusing to yield to the tides of despair. Our hopes create the light, Sophia echoed, her sweet voice rising above the chaos and feeding into the night around us. Together we can save each other. In that moment, something shifted. The tide began to turn, the shadows jostled, their hold wavering under the warmth of our combined hopes. I saw Sarah's demeanor shift, ever so slightly, a crack in the shadows that held her captive as she took a tentative step back toward me. No. Return. The dark man raged furiously, the shadows whirling with terrifying malice, thrumming against the very fabric of our shared existence. But we were unstoppable now, love rising within us, a fierce tide surging against the black vortex. Fight for what we love. Sarah finally shouted, stepping away from the dark man, the shadows within her dissipating like mist. They don't hold power over us anymore. A moment of silence fell, the shadows stilled, and I sensed a break in their fierce hold. The warm glow of connection filled the space left behind. We gripped each other's hands, hearts united, and as we came together, I could feel the shadows retreating, their hold expiring. Together, we shouted, voices intertwined, resonating with newfound power as we pushed against the darkness, trembling with love. Light cascaded from us, like dawn, breaking through the darkest night, an unbearable radiance that shattered the lingering shadows, scattering them like dust in the wind. I watched wide-eyed as the man's expression twisted into pure anguish, the darkness sweeping violently around him as he became less a figure, more a shadow himself. As we rose, the warmth washed over us, and in that radiant moment, my gaze flickered past the man. I saw Sarah standing tall, encased in a warm glow that banished fear, the lingering shadows giving way to light. The darkness is not our end, she declared with newfound clarity, stepping into the light filling the space between us. Mommy, Sophia whispered, eyes gleaming. Look! No more shadows. The remnants of darkness flickered and faded around us, the figure of despair dissolving into the light, consumed by the glow of our love, of family, of shared hopes, unbroken despite everything. I felt the heaviness in my heart lift, a soft breeze of acceptance sweeping through our gathering to conclusion, bittersweet yet uplifting. We had faced shadows more enormous than we thought possible, but we had triumphed. In that moment, amidst the warm embrace of light, I realized, healing is a journey we take together, each step forward solidifying our bond, illuminating the places within us once overshadowed. And as the sun rose higher, illuminating our world anew, I turned toward my daughter, her small face radiating joy. She was our heart, our tender flicker of hope that forged through darkness and fear. Together, I whispered, smiling down at her. Always. From the edges of my awareness, I felt Sarah's hand envelop mine, a promise of unity despite all that had transpired. Together, she echoed, a quiet strength building between us. And that was when I understood, love perseveres, love conquers, love connects us. Just as light disperses darkness, so too would our story continue, resilient and eternal, as a tale worth telling. As my heart swelled with gratitude for everything we had overcome, a final clarity settled within me, a remembrance that would weave through the tapestry of my life. In the midst of our journey, I held onto the truth that every shadow has a story, every heart can heal, and every soul can choose to embrace the light. In that moment, infinitely powerful and raw, we breathed life into the memory of all we had faced. With Sophia beside me, Sarah and Max standing resolutely at our side, we would forge ahead, united in love, woven together by a brilliant thread that would never be unraveled. Finally, I knew, as I turned to face the new day, a new chapter awaited us, and I was ready to write it. For shadows may encroach, but the flame of love will never be extinguished. Together, we would write the stories of our lives, hand in hand, ever brighter, forever cherished, forever united in light.